On a short-term forecast, if you're seeing no rain and you're making a decision, you might not be able to get stock off farm that quick. But when you're working on a 35-day forecast, you can actually make an accurate decision as to whether you need to move that stock off or whether there's a chance you might get some rainfall that'll enable you to keep those lambs on.
So the drought forecasting dashboard is a culmination of years of collaboration between MPI, the Ministry for Primary Industries, and NIWA. It gives the user the opportunity to understand if their region could experience abnormal dryness or drought over the next 35 days.
It certainly helped this year to know that when we were in that dry period, we knew there was rain coming. So that gave us massive confidence, and we could hang on to lambs knowing that yes, there was rain coming.
Any forecasting we get, whether it be short term or long term, is good, but what we find is if we can get a more accurate medium term forecast, then that enables us to respond rather than working off a short term forecast where you're kind of making reactive decisions all the time.
So when you land on the drought forecasting dashboard, the first thing that you'll see is a high-level overview of dryness and drought. You can also then drill down into your region. There's map domains for each of the regions of the country. What we can also do is then look at the next 5 weeks and understand, is the drought or dryness condition likely to ease? Is it likely to worsen? And in which parts of the country is that going to occur? You can also look at rainfall. So it's not just necessarily a drought forecaster. It can tell you about the other end of that spectrum as well. What I want to show here, this was week 3 at the time, it was already picking out a risk for elevated rainfall during the middle part of February, and that is actually when Cyclone Gabrielle ended up occurring. So this site also allows you to look at the recent observations. The range of things you can look at includes the New Zealand Drought Index, the last 15 days of rainfall, soil moisture, the Standardized Precipitation Index, as well as the last 15 days of temperature. And finally, there's another piece that allows you to compare the rainfall that has occurred in your region so far over the last 3 months, coupled with the forecast for the next 35 days, and then you can compare that amount with the last 3 calendar years.
If we can see that there's a dry period coming up, we can make decisions early. Likewise, if it is drier and we're thinking about that we're going to have to sell, but if we can look ahead and see that the probability of drought is diminishing over the 5-week period, we know that there's rain coming, and we can make those decisions with confidence that things are going to change.
So the drought dashboard is underpinned by something called NIWA 35. It sits between weather forecasting, what we see on our weather apps, and climate forecasting, which goes out several months into the future. And it's kind of this new and emerging area of the science where right now we're seeing the predictive capacity really start to increase. And it does, in the background, rely on things like El Nino, La Nina. It takes into account these climate drivers to help paint the picture as to what the weather is going to do over the next couple of weeks.
Probably like every farmer, we're always on our weather apps and looking what's happening next week, the week after, the next day, and making decisions around that.
I'd probably check in with it every 2 to 3 days just to see what's happening, because you can make a lot of assumptions if those trends starts to change.
What we found is that the tool can be accurate out to about 3 weeks in many cases. Sometimes, but not all the time, all the way out to 5 weeks if you're dealing with a very dry period. But generally speaking, we're seeing the most predictive ability in that 2 to 3 week time horizon. What I'd like to see is, as we go into the future and the model starts to learn about more and more of these weather events, that we continue to push the limits of the forecasting ability.
I guess at this point in time, the one thing I'd like farmers, growers, horticulturalists, foresters, the whole gambit of the Prime Ministry is to take away is that the project is still in a pilot prototype phase, and your feedback is absolutely welcome.
Through this collaboration with MPI, we've worked with several groups to really refine this product. I've presented to the likes of the Otago Southland Dryness Group, kind of steering what are the images, are they useful in the way they're presented or not.
End of the day, we want to develop a tool that is useful for people, and so getting those feedback loops happening is really critical.
The weather is king really, and we can't control what it does, we've just got to manage what comes. And so if we can have weather tools that help us predict what is coming, then we can make decisions around that.
Having as much information as we can around that uncontrollable thing, which is the weather, is really helpful to resilience in a farming business.